Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. As always, I'm Ari here with Korea, back on another big Friday, start of another weekend of football, the end of the first full week of the NBA, and then game one of the World Series tonight. So, a lot of sports action, obviously, hockey too, and other sports, obviously, too, but a lot of sports on to look forward to, today and this weekend. So we'll start off with a recap from yesterday. Korea, after a tough weekend for you last weekend, you're 2-0 this week on the stream with Mike Evans on Monday, and then the Rams. Nice call yesterday. It was a bit of a weird ending with the missed face mask call, but at the same time, they were still so far down the field. It's not like it was a guarantee it would have changed the game, but it's still a tough miss, but still a really good call from you for the Rams +3. Another loss for the Lions' opponent the next week after facing them, obviously, as well. What did you take away from your 1-0 day yesterday?
Yeah, obviously, I was just, it was pretty much the trap door opening up. Everyone's saying, "Oh, take the Vikings here up," and obviously, I saw a lot of people take the Vikings, and obviously, they got burned because, you could say, the controversial, no face mask call at the end, obviously on Sam Darnold in the end zone, which obviously resulted in the safety, but at the same time, Vikings had to go pretty much the whole field and get the 2-point conversion, just to keep themselves in this game and force overtime. So, they already had an uphill battle, to say that. And all we needed was the Rams to cover the +3. I also sprinkled the money line, so that was obviously great to see as well. So obviously great winner there. I said Sean McVay on Thursdays, he knows how to plan for opposing teams. And like I said, Matthew Stafford with a healthy offense. And look at that. We saw, people were saying, Puka was he went from being on IR that morning to having 7 receptions and 106 yards in a Thursday night game. So obviously, the fact that, obviously, and with all the Cooper Cup rumors, even though he didn't have, the greatest day, he still found the end zone as well. So, Matthew Stafford with his offense again, obviously, I saw all the rumors about, Matthew Stafford potentially being traded and Cooper Cup and all of them and Rams blowing it up. And look at that. They get a big win here, obviously at home against a great Vikings team. Obviously, no discredit to the Vikings. Obviously, great team, just a bad spot for them. Obviously, had to come on the road, short week after a tough loss. And now they obviously another tough loss. Obviously, you can say, referees this, referees that, and all of that. But still, at the end of the day, Rams still got the win. So, it was a controversial game, but I'm glad to be on the winning side instead of the losing side. So obviously Rams +3, I'll take that and on the money line as well. So, I'll take that, for my Thursday as well. I also gave out, Pitt Syracuse first half over 31.5. And if you saw that game, you know why I sighed. Ari, how'd you do yesterday?
Yes, sweaty win for the Timberwolves. Um, it was based. Anthony Edwards got fouled with like 2 seconds left in the tie game and hit them both to put Minnesota up 2. And then they're on the inbound. It looked like they were playing good defense. The Wolves were against Sacramento. But then there was like a screen, and Keegan Murray had a pump fake and had a pretty good look at a 3 to win it. But the ball rolled around the rim and luckily bounced out. So it was obviously a sweaty ending. It was pretty close throughout most of the game. The Kings were up for the majority of the first half, but it was Julius Randle who kept Minnesota in the game early. He wound up leading them with 33 points, and then Ant had 32. So they were the leaders. I think Nasri had 19 as well. So definitely sweaty, obviously, as expected. I mean, the spread was, I guess it was 1. I think it started at 2, and it went down to 1. So it was right around the spread, obviously, as well. But yeah, a good bounce back in the end for Minnesota after falling in its opener to the Lakers.
Oh yeah, obviously great game last night. You mentioned, came down to pretty much a last second shot, and obviously Keegan Murray had a good look, but obviously just rolled around and didn't fall in. So obviously great to see the Timberwolves got the win for you. Obviously, very close game, pretty back and forth. Obviously, you mentioned the Kings got to come out to an early lead, obviously up by 4 at half. The offense didn't really get going for this Timberwolves team. And then obviously you mentioned Julius Randle, obviously newcomer for this team, involved in the Karl-Anthony Towns trade. Newcomer for this Wolves team, stepped up, had 33 along with Ant's 32. Obviously cruising for a Timberwolves win. So obviously sweaty, very sweaty, but obviously a win's a win there. We'll take it there. So obviously a lot of momentum for us now. Undefeated day for us 2-0 as we head into the weekend here. Obviously, I would give out some Friday plays tonight, but with the 3 games, I know we got Ash and G&T tonight, but I was looking at that first half spread, and it's not the same one at Pitt Syracuse yesterday, and I don't want to get burned like Pitt Syracuse yesterday, so I'm going to stick to Saturday here. First, we're going to arguably one of the more exciting games of the day. We're going to go to Notre Dame and Navy here. We're back in the troops here, back in the Navy first half here, plus 7.5, minus 122 here. I'm back in Navy's offense in this spot. If they are going to make this game any kind of sort of interesting, it's going to have to be in the first half. I know Notre Dame is probably going to run away with this in the second half, so I do like Notre Dame on the full game, but I think the Navy can keep this one interesting in the first half. Obviously, with their running offense, we know obviously Navy one of the better offenses in terms of the triple option is what the armed forces are known for. They run the triple option nice. I don't know how Marcus Freeman's going to do defending that, but I think Navy, if they're going to make things interesting, I think they're going to make things interesting for one half here. So I'm taking them plus 7.5. Obviously, just keep things within a touchdown here. Obviously, Horvath, their quarterback, we know the dual threat quarterback ability, on the ground, potentially in the air sometimes. We've seen Navy make a couple good throws, in some big time games. The one kind of caveat for Navy is that their defense is horrible. They can't stop the run. And, that's the thing about this Notre Dame team is that they run the ball very well, obviously with Ryan Leonard and Jeremiah Love and all those big time names at Notre Dame. So I'm just going to take Navy to cover this first half spread plus 7.5. I think they make things interesting in the first half with their running offense, obviously. And, I think Notre Dame maybe make some adjustments at halftime and obviously just do what they do in the second half, obviously against a weaker Navy defense. But I think with their offense here, I think obviously Navy, and also I think I saw a stat where Navy in the second half, that's when they usually like to pass the ball more and do a lot more kind of play action and, RPO kind of stuff. So, obviously I think they'll maybe unleash that in the second quarter. So obviously keeping this close in the first half here. I'm taking Navy just to keep things close in the first half here, plus 7.5, minus 122. And then we're going to go to one of the weirdest line reads of the week, UCF here. We're taking them on the money line, minus 130. Now, you see UCF, close game, close spread, obviously only 2.5 points, home favorites. Who are they playing, right? They're playing 7-0 BYU, right? And you're thinking, why is a 7-0 team an underdog on the road against a 3-4 team? It's because that 3-4 team is going to win, right? We saw UCF last week, right? Tough loss on the road, tough loss. They honestly should have won that game at Iowa State, right? But Iowa State got lucky. They drove down the field, got a last-second touchdown. And, you could say that obviously there's some, potential letdown spot coming all the way back home against, obviously, BYU. You can arguably say one of the luckiest teams. Look, I have faded BYU for the past 3 weeks, and it's not worked. But this is the week. Well, actually, last week, I took Oklahoma State on the spread, and obviously that did hit and almost outright won. But I think this is the letdown spot for BYU. They come off an emotional win at home, obviously, comeback win on a Friday night against Oklahoma State at home. Now they got to travel all the way across the country to Orlando against arguably one of the best running backs in the country that's really not being talked about, RJ Harvey, obviously just very powerful back. And we know, with their quarterback now, obviously they made the quarterback change. I forget what his name is. He's a dual threat as well. So, I think that really provides, this more of a running offense here, more centric toward the run. And I think that really provides a little bit of a challenge for this BYU team. Obviously, we know very good defensively, but they're better in the secondary. They struggle against the run. Obviously, we saw what Ollie Gordon did, and he had some bursts last week against this BYU team. Now they play a little bit of a bigger challenge in RJ Harvey alongside, their quarterback who is dual threat as well. So I think this is the game BYU gets the letdown spot here. Obviously, they've had a great season. Obviously, no discredit to what they've been doing. But if there's going to be a spot to where they lose, I think this is where the spot is. So I'm taking UCF here on the money line here. Just simple line read, minus 130. Why is a 3-4 team favorite against an undefeated 7-0 team at home? Obviously, it goes back to the system there that I went back to last year. Unranked home teams versus ranked road teams. Always backing the home team in this spot. If it's pretty much that spread is anywhere from +6 to anywhere, almost as a pick 'em, and it's pretty much a pick 'em right now. So love backing UCF here on the money line here, minus 130, in pretty much what I'd say a very weird line read. I think a lot of people are going to be taking BYU as road dogs just because you see the records and you think, oh, why is 7-0 BYU as an underdog on the road? Might as well just take them. You might get burned. That's where you're burning your money right there. So I like UCF money line straight up -130 there. And then in arguably the ugliest game in the Big Ten on Saturday, outside of Michigan State, Michigan, we have Northwestern and Iowa here. Simple, taking the under here 38 -110. I know a lot of people are going to be saying, oh, it's a low total. We know Iowa can score with their run defense, with their running offense, and Northwestern scored 37 on the road at one time against Maryland. That ain't happening this time. This is the game where Iowa unders come back down to life. Iowa overs have been cashed in the last weeks. Obviously, they had that big win against Washington at home where they put up 40. Obviously, they've been putting up a lot of points, but I think this is the game where the under hits again. We talk about Iowa unders, Northwestern unders. This game is ugly. You have Northwestern's offense, which is just absolutely horrible. Obviously, that one road game against Maryland where they put up 37, but that was a bad matchup. Maryland's defense, not the greatest, especially through the air. And, that was where Louch pretty much attacked them. But I think this Iowa defense, the fact that they're way, way much better than Maryland's as well, one. And then two, obviously playing at home. Obviously, I think Iowa's they play a lot better at home in terms of their defense. Obviously, they like to attack the quarterback, force pressure. And we saw the last time Louch was on the road, or one time Louch on the road facing a lot of, heavy pressure, from defenses. Like that was that Washington game where they scored 5 points. So that was that game. Obviously, just could not get any kind of offense going there. And then for Iowa, we know they're run-centric offense, obviously, with Caleb Johnson. And we know he's eventually going to find the end zone. But Northwestern has a pretty sneaky run defense. Obviously, number 6 in the country at just stopping the run. And obviously, McNamara, not the greatest thrower from what we've seen recently. So I think this is just going to be an ugly game. You're going to check your TV. You say, oh, well, it's 3-3. All right. Then you check your screen. Oh, 6-3. Okay. And then you check your screen again. Oh, someone scored. It's 9-6. Okay. All right. 10-6. Here we go. And then the final score comes, 13-10. And then that's the game. So Northwestern Iowa taking that under here, 38. It's going to be really ugly. Just two really one-centric offensive teams here. Northwestern really more of a running team, and they can pass, but their offense as a whole is just horrible. And then Iowa very run-centric against a good run defense. In Northwestern, taking the under there. So under 38 there, -110. So I know I took an under there. I know I promised you I got to take you with an over here. So we're going to go to Cincy and Colorado here. Points, over 56 here, -120. That line is climbing. It's up to 57 now. I'll still take it there, but I like the 56 for that push potential. Obviously, 8 TDs there, and I think there's going to be a lot of points between these two teams. Obviously, first with Cincinnati. They're obviously a good passing offense with Sorsby. We've seen what they can do, but their defense at times can be very susceptible. Obviously, we saw that game against ASU last week for them, and look, Jeff Sims is not good. Okay, like he's not good. So I'm not really going to credit Cincinnati's defense because it was just more bad ASU offense. Obviously, without Sam Levitt for them, and then for Colorado, we know obviously they had that big game. Obviously, I know Ari, you had to watch that. Unfortunate beatdown of Colorado, and not just backing their offense here in this spot. Obviously, they are one of the teams everyone does not really like to talk about right now, just because of how well they're playing. But obviously, one win away from a bowl game eligibility here. I think Shedeur, obviously, he's a top 5 quarterback, but I think there's one quarterback who's been playing a lot better than him in Miami, and in this spot, I think he really attacks the Cincinnati defense that really is vulnerable to the past. We saw that Pitt and Cincinnati game earlier this year where obviously Pitt was down, but they crawled back in that game at home and won. And I'm not saying it can happen here, but I'm just thinking it's going to be more back and forth, obviously, with Sorsby kind of going down the field, with that passing offense for Cincinnati, and then going for Colorado, obviously, with their passing offense with Hunter, obviously Heisman candidate, Shedeur, obviously, top 5 pick in the NFL right now. I like points here. I think there's going to be a lot of points here. High scoring game in Colorado here Saturday night here. So those are my 4 picks for Saturday. Going with Navy first half here plus 7.5. UCF straight up on the money line. The most boring game of the day with Northwestern and Iowa under 38. And then probably one of the more sneaky, exciting games with Cincinnati and Colorado over the 56. Got to be a lot of points scored in Folsom Field. So those are my 4 picks for Saturday. Ari, what have you cooked up for this Saturday slate?
Yep, 2 plays for me. Starting off with first half under in Oklahoma Ole Miss. Oklahoma, they announced that they're going back to Arnold this week, so no more Hawkins, but again, we were fading Arnold as well before he was replaced, so I still like fading him as well. And Ole Miss's offense hasn't been as explosive the past few weeks as it was to start the season, and Oklahoma's defense is still respectable enough. I mean, they gave up 35 last week, but like 2 or 3 of the scores were basically because of Hawkins, essentially. So, they literally were because of Hawkins, I guess, not even essentially. So, I'm really just, and I just want to avoid, just a backdoor cover, kind of a score late that doesn't mean anything. So that's why I'm sticking to the first half here. It's also kind of weird because like the full game is 49, but the first half is 25.5. So the first half is a little over half of the full game, whereas to my understanding, usually you see the first half a little bit under half of the full game. So that's a little bit strange. So I'll take the extra point or half a point, I guess you could say, for the first half compared to the full game. So that's my first play. It's really just fading Oklahoma's offense and then backing Oklahoma's defense enough to keep Ole Miss's offense in check to, for this first half under to go under. And then I'm really just backing A&M at home against LSU, really just backing the home team here. It's basically a pick 'em essentially. Pretty much the game of the day, I would say, on Saturday. I think it's the ABC game on Saturday. So really it's a game where I'm just backing the team at home. Obviously A&M's really good at home. LSU's been, has been good for most of the season. They crushed Arkansas last week, which is what it is. They beat Ole Miss in overtime. So yeah, I'm really just backing A&M at home in this one to pull out, which should be a close competitive game. So those are my 2 plays for Saturday. Oklahoma, Ole Miss first half under 25.5, and then Texas A&M on the money line.
Yeah, obviously, first off with Oklahoma, Ole Miss, obviously, I love fading Oklahoma's offense. You mentioned, obviously, last week, with all the scores for South Carolina, yeah, they scored 32, but, it was the pick on the play for Hawkins, and then obviously the scoop and score, and then the pick six. So, all 3 of the 21 points came off of turnovers. So, you do the subtraction there. So, obviously, Oklahoma's defense still did their job. Raheem Sanders still had himself a pretty decent day, but, I don't really know how, this Ole Miss offense does against this Oklahoma defense, which still obviously, likes to stop the run. And, Ole Miss offense, even though we know Ole Miss offense is still good, obviously they only have faced, not really subpar defenses or anything like that. So I think another true test for them defensively is in store here. So I do like that first half under here. I like, both teams to really not really drive down the field. A lot of punts here, I think we'll check at that first half score. It'll probably be like 6-0 or 3-0 at favor of probably Ole Miss or something. Just really defensive there. So I do like that Oklahoma Ole Miss first half under there. And then the A&M here, obviously game of the day, Saturday night primetime game. Obviously, this game was one of the rivalry week games, but obviously moved up with all the realignments. So I do like A&M here straight up at home on the money line here. Well, Kyle Field is different at night. This is a big game for both teams, obviously, in terms of their playoff chase. LSU, obviously, one of the more dominant teams, obviously, after their week 0 loss, to USC. But I think this is a letdown spot for them against a good defense on the road. I don't think they've really played. Obviously, Ole Miss was probably the better defense or the best defense they've played this season, and they got an escape win at home, obviously, with Cameron Lacey with that last-second touchdown. Now they got to go on the road after beating up against Arkansas and their inconsistent offense. Now on the road at Texas A&M. I think this is a huge letdown spot for them, obviously. So I do like A&M on the money line for you. So Ari's 2 picks for Saturday, my 4 picks for Saturday as well. Let's go to Sunday here. Obviously, we got NFL on Sunday here. I got 2 picks for you on Sunday. Just totals here. I know we got a lot of games here, a lot of weird lines here. First, I'm going to go with the Packers and Jags here. I'm taking that over 49 here, minus 112. I think, with these kind of 2 teams, obviously, I love taking Jags overs because their offense is going to try and keep them in this game, but their defense is so bad that, it's going to be rough. And I think it's going to be one of those games where we check, it's going to be like a 35-20, maybe like a 35 something, like a 38-27 type game, just really high scoring. I think the Packers can really move their offense through the air with Jordan Love against this, weak Jaguars team. The Jags, obviously they're coming off that big win against, the Patriots, but it's the Patriots. Everyone can beat the Patriots right now. So I'm not really taking anything too much there. I've seen a lot of people taking the Jags plus the points, but I really kind of don't really like that narrative, and I just really want an over here. So I do like the Jags, but if you also kind of like the Jags, you kind of also like the over for them to keep this close. I don't really trust the Jaguars defense one bit, and I know the Packers offense is going to have their way with them. And obviously on the other side, the Packers obviously, I do think we have big days for guys like maybe like Tank Bigsby. I can never pronounce that guy's name. Tank Bigsby on the ground. Obviously, Packers a little bit susceptible to the run, and we know obviously Jair Alexander is probably going to be on, maybe Brian Thomas or their best receiver, so maybe a little bit of a challenge for him. But I still think, obviously, Trevor Lawrence maybe has a decent day in the year, obviously. But I just think it's going to be a heavy, high-scoring game. Maybe more of the points coming on the Packers' way, which is how their offense is pretty much multifaceted with Josh Jacobs out the backfield. Obviously, we've seen Romeo Doubs emerge after all the trade rumors of him obviously not really liking his current position. In Green Bay now, he's been one of their top receivers recently. Obviously, Jaden Reed as well. All the options for the Packers right now. I think this game soars over. So Packers Jaguars over 49 tomorrow on Sunday. Minus 112. And then my other game. This was the game that I talked about in terms of the revenge spot. If you go back to that Thursday night game between the Bucs and Falcons, I said I'm going to take the Bucs, in a revenge spot, and then all of a sudden they lost all their stars on the Monday. They lost Mike Evans. Obviously Bucky Irving was out, but now is playing, and then obviously they lost Chris Godwin. So I'm just going to take it under here. I think this game's going to soar under here, under 46 between the Bucs and Falcons. We know obviously the last game was super high scoring. We saw that game. Obviously it was the Thursday night game where Kirk Cousins threw for 500 yards. Obviously, had himself a day. Now he's going to go on the road to play a Bucs team, obviously, who's a lot more better defensively. Even though we saw that game for the Ravens, obviously, with Derrick Henry just running through them, I think this is the game where, the Falcons, pretty much struggle to really get things going on the ground. We saw that last game, obviously, for the Falcons. The Seahawks pretty much were forcing turnovers, not really, the Falcons offense was kind of coming back down to earth after, having some big offensive games, couldn't really get anything moving. And I don't really like him in the spot on the road here. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure in Kirk Cousins' face again. And we saw how that happened last week, obviously forcing turnovers. And then on the other side for the Bucs, obviously we know, these two teams obviously know each other on the Bucs. I think the fact that they lost, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, I think those are going to be two really big losses because obviously those are your kind of those are Baker's kind of safety blankets. Obviously it's like, if he faces third down pressure in his face, he has Mike Evans down there somewhere. If he has, it's a second and short, and he wants to do a play action pass, he has Chris Godwin in the slant. But he doesn't have those two options anymore. So I think it's going to be a little bit slow for that offense to really get things going. They're probably going to be a lot more run-centric. And, Bucky Irving obviously dealing with that toe injury, I think that maybe hinders his, bursting ability as well, even though it's weird because he was out, yesterday, and then today he's playing. So, that obviously kind of tells, maybe he's not the most fully healthy, but he wants to give it a go. And obviously, so I really think the Bucs really struggle offensively, try to find, some true identity for themselves after they just lost their two best receivers. So I think it's going to be a low scoring game here. The Falcons, obviously, one of the better, zone defenses, and Baker, obviously, we know how, he does against zone defenses, but he did well because, obviously he had those options, but it might be a little bit of a struggle for him to get off any offensive rhythm going with kind of all those, these new guys coming into the system and whatnot. So, are getting their chance, whatnot. So I'm taking it under here. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think we see both teams kind of lean toward the ground a lot more, obviously, with the Bucs and with Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. And then the Falcons, obviously, we know they have Bijan, but, if they do want to attack the air, I think it might be a little bit of a challenge for them, with facing all that pressure in Kirk Cousins' face. So I'm thinking under here, 46.5 between the Bucs and Falcons, alongside the Packers and Jaguars over 49. Those are my 2 plays for Sunday. Ari, what do you like on this NFL Sunday slate?
Yeah, not a slate I love, just one play for me, and you touched on it with your over. And, the Jaguars are a team that people try to get sharp on all season, and I never bought it. So, yeah, I mean, I think I agree it's going to be, more high scoring than not, so I don't mind the look on the over. I'm just going with the Packers to cover the spread. I think that they could win by – I think this could be like a potential like louder play. I think they could win by 10 plus, and I think they could score 30 on their own. So that does well over half of your over for you on itself, obviously. So we could see the Jaguars kind of have some garbage scores late to help you over as well, obviously. But yeah, I mean, the Jaguars, coming off back-to-back London games, obviously, so there's that. Back at home, I'm really just backing the Packers offense to score a lot on the Jaguars defense. I think the Jaguars will hold their own, at least maybe early on in the game at home. But I think the Packers pull away relatively easily in the second half. Something like a 34-23, something along those lines. So, not a slate I love. As I said, it's just one play for me. Packers to cover the spread on Sunday over Jacksonville.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird. It's a weird Sunday. It's just weird lines, weird totals. I didn't really like too much as well.
A lot of big favorites too.
Yeah, obviously you have a bunch of like big, huge 10, 11-point favorites. Obviously Detroit 11-point favorites at home against the Titans. Chiefs 10-point favorites against the Raiders. Just a lot of big spreads here. So I do like the Packers for you -4, kind of going off of my play here. I think with the over here, I think if the over is going to be in play, then I think the Packers offense is going to be producing a lot of those points as well. You mentioned just all the guys for this Packers team. The Jags, coming off of that London trip, now coming back to the States, and the London Jags are a little bit different than the American Jags. So I really don't like backing this Jags team. And obviously, you mentioned Jags have kind of been fake sharp all season. You see the Jags at home only getting 5 points at home, and obviously that line's going down to 4. But I think it's a lot of fake sharp action going down on the Jags as well. I think the Packers as well just come in here, obviously take care of business as well. As well, you mentioned I think the Packers can score 30 themselves, and I think obviously that's en route to an over as well. But I think the Packers really just handle their business as well against the Jags, defense that is really, really bad. Obviously, they just faced, one of the worst offenses last week. So obviously everyone's backing them because, they beat the Patriots by this much last week. Well, obviously Patriots, one of the worst offenses, if not, you can say the worst statistical offense in the NFL this year. And I'm not really backing the Jags to do anything against the Packers offense, which obviously a lot better. We've seen Jordan Love elevate his game potentially to a new level now, obviously with the injury this year, but now coming back and still in this Packers team in a very, very competitive NFC North division. So I love yours, just one bet for Sunday, just the Packers -4. So recap of the full weekend here. Back to Saturday with my 4 best bets with the Navy first half spread, UCF on the money line, Northwestern Iowa under, then Cincinnati, Colorado going over points. We love that. And then obviously Ari's 2 best bets for Saturday with Oklahoma Ole Miss, dud game in the first half under the 25.5. And then A&M at home, obviously on the money line, -112 in a pick'em. Obviously one of the games of the night. And then obviously heading into Sunday with my 2 best bets, just the Packers and Jags over, and then the Bucks and Falcons under the 46.5. And then alluding to Ari's one play for Sunday with the Packers on the spread -4 in Jacksonville on the road. Obviously, you can find all of these plays on our Twitter below, AKP Sports Talk. We'll have all of these bets posted momentarily. We're going to have Saturday's card posted tonight, and then obviously Sunday's card posted on Saturday afternoon. But, of course, we'll be back on Monday to do a full recap of how we did this weekend. And, of course, we are not forgetting Sports Equinox on Monday. We're going to have a parlay for that, so make sure you really tune in on Monday, because Monday is going to be a start of a big week for us. Obviously, we have the introduction of the full week of NBA, obviously. We're going to be getting ready for college basketball. We have some baseball, obviously, with the World Series. We have college football, NFL. This is the big week, obviously, next week, obviously. So next week, we're going to be going back to our full weekday daily video. So no more Monday skip to Thursday. We're going to see you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So starting on Monday next week, October 28th, we're going to have our Sports Equinox parlay. So make sure to tune into that. That's Ari. I'm Korea. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have a great weekend, and we will see you Monday.